Right, till the others join. Anyone else who is joining for the first time today who has not sat for my lectures earlier? You can just highlight and wave your hand or whatever. This is for my information. Only one? Okay, so whoever who are joining for the first time today, we are going to start on a new topic. The topics that we already discussed in the previous week. You get hold of some of your friends and thereafter, because it's quite an important topic that we discussed during the last few weeks, mainly on the bills of exchange ordinance, etc., which is again a core area in your exams coming up. Therefore, get hold of and take yourself up to speed on whatever that we discussed. And today we will be, like I mentioned, we are going to commence on a new topic, namely the Electronics Transactions Act. Right? I hope all of you will have received and downloaded by now the presentation as well as the note behind it. Well, I'm not here to go through the presentation, so to speak. You can just read it through your leisure time, but I give more prominence is to the act itself, right? I have mixed feelings about discussing about this particular piece of law for a couple of reasons. I'm happy on the one hand that we have this discussion today, and it's in the curriculum of this discussion with regard to electronics transactions and recognition of these matters. On the other hand, I'm not rather what do you call that happy about the fact that it is only now that we are discussing about these developments, etc. Because it's even the act itself is over almost 15 years old now. It's not a new act, so to speak. However, still we are dwelling upon certain trivial issues. Even in the practice, I'm talking about law. Like disputing certain contracts, certain elements uh, purely based on the ground that it is in electronic form. So that is not a good sign for the development of a country as well as your personal development, right? Even as of now, we are about 50 years behind from the rest of the world, at least. Electronic transactions and recognitions and how we use them. See, that's one bright side of this COVID-19, and because people are now, or rather have been compelled to rely on these matters. There were people which I have come across, not so long ago, who are even, petrified, not terrified, petrified, even, having funds transfers electronically, right? So I want each of you to share with me, so don't worry about the law. What are the benefits of electronic media, electronic medium, electronics transactions? When don't worry about the legality of it. What you think about it? What are the benefits of it? Just point in point form. We will see what those are, whether there's a validity in that, and on top of it, how the legal framework has supported it or is supporting it, or what are the areas that we need to focus on. So go ahead and share with me, in your opinion, what are the benefits of having electronic transactions, electronic form, contracts electronically, and etc. And with examples, please.
We can save time and it's very convenient. Yeah, it's very convenient and we can save time.
Yes, convenient, save time. You can unmute and say, you can even type, whatever that is convenient. Easy to transact anywhere or anytime. Yes. What else?
Worldwide
No
thing.
documentation work.
Pardon?
Worldwide thing.
Worldwide, yes. Globally, yeah, you can, get in contact with anywhere, with any person anywhere in the world, anytime. Easy access. Yes, correct. What else? What are we having now? Physical, yes. Physical risk reduced, absolutely, yes. It's an institution easy to promote their products, less expenses. Come on, you need to. This is an exercise that I want you encourage you all to put your thinking hats on and get involved in this discussion, because it's equally important when we are going through the legal framework to see why it is in the first. Because so many people, despite the fact that it is over almost about 15 years old, but still people doesn't know whether this is legally valid, etc., etc. How many of you, right? This is just an open question, right? Nothing legal. How many of you wrote a letter in writing, right, with a pen? When was it? The most recent you did it? When was it? Yesterday, today, tomorrow, this morning? Comprehensive less transfer cost, yeah. Yes. Last month, my goodness, yes. What else? As far as I recall now, I haven't personally, I haven't done that. But then again, all my transactions, even for that matter, even if you sign even the signature, yeah, of course, Achala, correct. Exactly. I mean, it should be well over at least 4 to 5 years. Uh, and because the need doesn't arise, and the usage of cash diminishes, the physical cash, because of the options that we have. Just only imagine if these transactions electronically are not there, what a fuss and a harassment that the customers, I'm just refining myself into this co-banking areas, a customer would have to go through. They'll have to stand in queues. They would have to visit the branch, the tellers. I remember the automatic teller machines which came in Sri Lanka. I can't remember, maybe in the early 90s, right? It was a huge thing. If not for automated teller machines, every single transaction will have to go through a manual teller. Just only imagine. And then of course you cannot withdraw after the banking hours. How would that feel? Then what about check clearing? All the checks, you remember what we discussed last few weeks, will have to be taken manually to the clearing house, as was used to do that about 30 years ago. And thereafter, the check imaging and truncation system, CITS, came in, and now it's check image clearing. The legal framework has supported that by Payments and Settlements Act in check clearing. And thereafter, so all this, now I just mentioned only about some of those, right? But there is a huge line of benefits which we enjoy as a result of this electron, because you cannot keep it out. We have to go with the world at that pace, at least, right? If we are not inventive, at least we'll have to follow. It's inevitable, right? Just only imagine that aspect of it. However, the equal important thing is, you might be following, you might be having the same practices, etc. However, if something goes wrong, example, somebody sends you an email, maybe, you know, some part of the world, let's say you have bought something down from eBay and, you know, or, you know, got something from a mobile vendor through a mobile app, you know, Pick Me or whatever you call it, or directly from the vendor. And, you know, there's a dispute. The transaction advice you get maybe an SMS, right? So from signing even today we do that, signing the transaction advice of the credit card slip at the post, right? Then digitally signing it, and now not requiring to sign it. However, all these acknowledgements are now coming back to, you know, a simple machine, that is your phone, and if there's a dispute, what can you do? If the legal framework doesn't support that, then we are in a bit of a soup, right? Then we are in a bit of a soup. Electronic Transactions Act in 2007, right? It came into force. However, even it was, I'm sorry, 2006. Even before that, did we have the ability or the possibility to produce certain things which were not in documentary form in the eyes of law or before the law? Yes, we had. Now the evidence in so far as legal framework is concerned is governed under the evidence ordinance. සිංහලෙන් අපි කියන සාක්ෂි ආඥා පනත කියලා. Under the evidence ordinance, it wasn't the case. However, in 1994, we had a special piece of law called Evidence Special Provisions Act. Now, by this Evidence Special Provisions Act, it recognized transactions, documents in electronic forms and contemporaneous recordings. සිංහලෙන් කියන සමකාලීන රෙකෝඩන කියලා. Contemporaneous recording. So normally, if you want to record something, you would record it in writing. If it's a narrative, you record it in writing. But a step forward from that, in the 90s, of course, you know, it's not that digital savvy in comparison. So we had, you know, the tapes, right? ඒකනේ අපි කියන්නේ චිත්‍රපටි කියලා. Then චිත්‍රපටි නෑනේ. You don't have it's digital now. Those days they were tapes, actual physical, but everything tape, right? Literal meaning of the tape, right? Right. So this Evidence Special Provisions Act recognized certain contemporaneous recordings. Contemporaneous recordings means at that point of time of discussion, whatever the medium of recording. So in the 90s, it's the tape. Then late 90s, early 2000s, the CDs, then the USB drives, and digitally now it's majority of it is cloud-based, right? So were there. Now, for you to admit it, for it to be acceptable, there are a certain set of rules that have been laid down by the specific act, specific law rather, right? Now, I'm not going to discuss about Evidence Special Provisions Act today, and that is not specifically within the purview of this discussion. What we are going to discuss is this Electronic Transactions Act and what's its effect on this Evidence Special Provisions Act, and what more has it given by the legislature. When I say legislature, when I say it's legislature, that's parliament, that's the lawmaking body of the country. Why did it see that requirement of an Electronic Transactions Act? Right. So I'm taking your attention specifically because, you know, I can't give a better what do you call, explanation than, you know, taking you through the act itself. So let's see what the act has to say. So you are now seeing on the screen Electronic Transactions Act number 19 of 2006. This is the title of the act. This is the 19th act to be passed by the parliament in the year 2006, right? Certified on the 19th of May. This was subject to one change, one amendment, that is the Electronic Transactions Amendment Act in number 25 of 2017. Today's discussion, I'm not going to go through the entirety of the act, which you are going to do. You have to do that, right? What I'm going to do is to go through the salient provisions of the Electronic Transactions and certain myths about Electronic Transactions Act and its effects, right? So let's see. Now, this particular wording in capital form is called the preamble. Preamble, Preamble, if you have not learned already. In Sinhala, we call it Purvikava, right? It basically is an introduction, a summary in very succinct or brief form as to what the act is for. So in the preamble of this act, it says what the purpose of what this act is for. This is an act to recognize and facilitate the formation of contracts. So, take these matters into your head crucially. Recognize, facilitate the formation of contracts. The creation and exchange of data messages, electronic documents, electronic records, and other communications in electronic form in Sri Lanka, and to provide for the appointment of a certification authority. Now, this highlighted part you would see has been repealed. Repealed means it's been taken out by the Amendment Act. Instead of this highlighted part, now it reads as so an accreditation of certificate, instead of an accreditation of certification service, where it goes as and licensing and authorizing of certification service providers to give effect to the provisions of the United Nations Convention on the use of electronic communications in international contracts. See, this is at most important. We've been using electronic information, electronic contracts, even when some of the legal framework was not supporting it. So if something goes bad, and nowhere to go. It's a good thing that, for an example, you buy something from eBay, you have the buyer protection policy that is being given by the eBay, not by the law of the land. So if something like that is not there, for an example, let's say Uber, right? Something goes wrong, right? And they charge you for something else, and which you haven't authorized to do. What can you do if the legal provision Uber is not going to protect you, right? What can you do about it? Where to go? Who to complain? Where is your recourse? So that is being secured, or those rights are being protected under the Evidence Special Provisions Act as well as Electronic Transactions Act. So this is the preamble of the act, right? So remember these things. Now, we like the general provisions. Like I said, I'm going to go through only the salient provisions of these. Objectives of the act. Objectives. මෙම නීතියේ මෙම පනතේ පරමාර්ථයන්, objectives. Listen very carefully. You need to read this not once, not twice, not thrice, X number of times, so that you are very conversant with these objectives and you are comfortable in all these objectives and with the legal framework, and then you know what you are doing and what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. First one, to facilitate domestic and international electronic commerce by eliminating legal barriers and establishing legal certainty. So this means domestic and international electronic commerce. So all the trade, the international trade to banking, correspondent banking. You correspond through with your other banks counterparts internationally through electronic means. So all those, I mean, this is quite frequently used in trade finance. Whoever who is in that department would be knowing what I'm talking about. They use it frequently. So on guarantees, demand guarantees, counter guarantees, etc. All these are governed and practiced under this. So this legal statute, this legal framework provides for this matter, right? So this is the legal framework. If something goes wrong, for an example, you have given a counter guarantee. You have given a counter guarantee for a demand guarantee to a correspondent bank. If the demand guarantee expires and you say extend the counter guarantee, extend the demand guarantee, then I will extend the counter guarantee. So those, let's say if one thing expires, you say we are not going to renew this counter guarantee unless you so we are not going to renew the demand guarantee unless you renew the counter guarantee. So all these are done through electronic medium. That is a valid contract. What if the demand guarantee expires and counter guarantee, the demand guarantee is extended, counter guarantee has expired, and there is a claim on the bank? You can hold that other bank responsible based on the electronic communication you made. So how you can vindicate your rights, how you can establish your rights is under this piece of law, right? Then, to encourage the use of reliable forms of electronic commerce. Reliable forms of electronic commerce. What do you mean by they encourage the use of reliable forms of electronic commerce? What are the forms of electronic commerce which you can think of? Any forms of electronic commerce? The mediums of how you transact. Your bankers, you should have 101 mediums. Tell me. Yeah, how do you correspond through on electronic commerce? What are the media? Yeah. What else? My goodness, there is so many. Others? Only one. Where are the others? Bankers?
Swift.
Pardon?
Swift.
Yeah. What else? Now, come on, be more, what do you call it? Have a sense of variety. You're only talking about payment systems. It's not only about, for electronic commerce. It's not, payment system is only part of it. Again, yeah, that's correct. What I'm saying is, think more openly. Yes. Yes. What else? Yes. Good. Yes. Right. So to encourage the use of reliable forms, it should be reliable, right? If it is not reliable, for an example, you send something and the recipient at the other end sees something else, it's not a reliable form. And if it is, quite easy to be hacked, if it is not encrypted, then any Tom, Dick, and Harry can come and just intercept a message and change it, and either eavesdrop or tap it it's not a reliable form. And let's say you enter your passwords or whatever, and somebody else is able to hack the system. What do you think? If it is that easy to be hacked, unless it's a supercomputer, then it's not a reliable form, right? Or else you get a receipt or the printout and it gets erased in a matter of hours. It's not a reliable form because but you would know the prints that you get in the ATM slips. It fades away in about a couple of months, right? Unless you have a reliable form to preserve it, it's not going to be a reliable form in the longer run, right? Then this particular one is repealed and replaced by Section 3 of the Amending Act. See, let's see what has it amended, right? By repeal, it has said this: to facilitate electronic filing of any application, petition, plaint, answer, written submission, or any other document with any code. Now, this is absolutely marvelous, especially to the practicing attorneys like us, and especially in the current context, in view of COVID. COVID is everywhere. And this is a fantastic method for us lawyers. We deal with a lot of documents, quite a lot. And that is quite a prominent way of spreading the virus. So instead of, when it comes to filing any cases, making any applications to petitions, to claims, all these documents, this particular law facilitates electronic filing. Now the Supreme Court has already laid down rules as to the procedure of doing that, but this is the substantive law in enabling that. Procedure is something else. So that's a fantastic method. And thereafter, this new clause CA is also introduced by the Amending Act. What is that? To facilitate electronic filing of any form, application, or any other document with any ministry, department, provincial council, provincial ministry and department, or local authority, body, agency, for that matter. And under the Act, there are regulations. I saw somewhere even recently also, now you can apply for your birth certificates, not yours, but birth certificates, then death certificates. That is what I was mentioning, not yours. Somebody else will have to apply your death certificate. Right? All these matters electronically. And also, it has gone to a level that, for you to extend or renew your revenue license, you don't have to visit the local authority. You can do that just by clicking the phone. Right, go to the relevant website and do, and if you want to get the details of a particular vehicle, who's registered to, etc., all this can be done by. So that setup is there, the infrastructure is there, but the legal framework for doing that is by this, right? And then here under D, it doesn't stop from there. They have said, okay, other communications, and they have introduced a new clause after D, which is clause E, to implement the provisions of the convention subject to such restrictions specified in section 23 of this Act. Convention, what is the convention? The convention is there when we read the earlier one, right? The UN Convention on the use of electronic communications in international contracts. So that's the convention. So this section 23 is one of those most important areas, one of those most important sections in the Electronic Transactions Act. So insofar as this is concerned, your exams are concerned, I'm not saying others are useless or no point. What I'm saying is these sections and these areas which we are discussing today are of utmost importance. The objectives, right? The preamble, the objectives, section 23, which we are going to discuss in a moment. Right. Section 3. This is provided under Chapter 2 of the Electronic Transactions Act. It provides for recognition of data messages and other communications in electronic form. Now, what is legal recognition of electronic records? No data message, electronic document, electronic record, or other communication shall be denied legal recognition, effect, validity, or enforceability on the ground that it is in electronic form. Read that sentence once again. You come across so many technical words: data message, electronic document, electronic record, or other communication. So on the mere fact that it is in electronic form is not a valid reason for anyone to reject it. That's what this basically means. So this then brings us to the question, what do you mean by a data message? What do you mean by electronic document, electronic record, etc.? So then we go to the definition on section 27. We will see what those things are. Interpretation, sorry, 26. Right. Communication. What is communication? Means any statement, declaration, demand, notice, request, including an offer and acceptance. Offer and acceptance that a person is required to make or chooses to make in connection with an electronic transaction in the meaning of this act. For example, you make a place an order in your mobile app, maybe for a cab or a taxi or food or something else. That is communication, electronic communication, right? You place an order. Data message. What is a data message? Information generated, sent, received, or stored by electronic, magnetic, optical, or other means. So an SMS is a data message. WhatsApp message, Viber, the list goes on, right? It's a data message. Or even, for an example, you don't get the message, you get the link, right? It's again a data message because information that is generated and received in optical mean anything. Then electronic, what do you mean by electronic? It means information generated, sent, received, or stored by electronic, magnetic, optical, or similar capacity, regardless of the medium. So it could be any medium, but all these things, information generated through these. Then what is an electronic document? Includes documents, records, information, communications, or transactions in electronic forms. Right? If you have any questions, I'm just continuing with this. If you have any questions, please do raise the hand and ask me anything that you would like to be clarified. Right? Then we go to again section 3. Right. Then requirement for writing. Notwithstanding the fact that the provisions of the written laws of the time being enforced in Sri Lanka attach legal value to certain document instruments, only if such instruments have been reduced to writing, such requirement shall be deemed to be satisfied by a data message, electronic document, electronic record, or other communication in electronic form. Now I'm going to give you a proviso for that, right? Meaning this is a subjective clause. That is, if in Sri Lanka, under any law, it states that, right? It states that if a particular contract should be in writing, that particular requirement is satisfied if that writing or that particular contract is in electronic form. For an example, let's say you want to buy a car or a vehicle. You go and tell the seller, I want to buy this car for this amount. That's your offer. He accepts it. Okay, I will sell you my car for that amount. Then that's a contract. That's the normal contract in writing. But instead of doing that, you send an email to him, which he responds or replies accepting. Or else you send an SMS to him or WhatsApp message and he responds. That becomes a valid contract, despite the fact that the law requires the contract to be in writing. Writing is the term writing is satisfied by the fact that you sent an email. තේරුණාද? Right? ලිඛිතව කියන අවශ්‍යතාවයේ නීතියෙන් ඉල්ලන ඒ අවශ්‍යතාවයේ සෑහීමකට පත් වෙනවා විද්‍යුත් පණිවිඩයක් හෝ කෙටි පණිවිඩයක් හෝ ඒ යම් ආකාර පණිවිඩයකින් ඉලෙක්ට්‍රොනික වශයෙන් යවුවම ඒක සෑහීමකට පත් වෙනවා. So that requirement for writing is satisfied even if it is in electronic form. Then requirements for original form. Now this is another thing. Where the law requires information to be presented or retained in its original form, that requirement shall be deemed to be satisfied by a data message, electronic document, electronic record, or other communication in electronic form, if there exists a reliable assurance as to the integrity of the information. Then this part, the time when it was made available, so that particular part has been amended by the 2017 Act. So instead of the highlighted part, now it says the time when it was first generated in its final form as a data message, electronic document, electronic record, or communication, or otherwise. Give me being bankers, give me the best example for this, what you all are practicing. Best example for this. You can either, unmute and tell me, or you can type it up. What's the best example you can give which satisfies this clause or holds on the strength of this particular clause? What is the clause? Clause is where the law requires information to be presented or retained in its original form, that requirement shall be deemed to be satisfied by a data message, electronic document, electronic record, or other communication in electronic form, if there exists a reliable assurance as to the integrity of the information from the time when it was first generated in its final form as a data message, electronic document, record, or communication or otherwise, and the information contained in the data message that can be used for subsequent reference. So one thing that needs to be ensured is the fact that it should be a reliable form of retention of the original form. Then secondly, right, data message from record or otherwise, and there should be an assurance as to the integrity of it. That means, it should not have been tampered with, or it should not have been altered or otherwise. And it should be readily available and retrievable at any point whenever that is required. So all these three requirements needs to be preserved for you to have that in origin, this electronic form. So what's the best example? You as the bankers. Yes, thank you. E-statement, correct. Check return notifications, correct. CITS, check imaging and truncation. That's the best. No, I'm not saying the others are wrong. What I'm saying is CRX and check image clearing now. You don't go there and, then you shred the check. And then all the documents as well, not all the documents, but you can do that. That's what this basically means. The legal infrastructure is such that has, pushed these boundaries, and it enables to have these practices. Otherwise, just imagine what you would have to go through if this legal framework is not there, and you have to physically go and hand over the checks for image clearing. And just imagine the number of statements that has to be generated and the amount of eucalyptus you will have to waste and the trees that goes down with it, right? Then check return notifications. In this day and age, and especially in Sri Lanka, especially during this period at the time of the decade, right? You would come across it's immense, right? Very good. So the others, I want the others also to partake in this and share your knowledge. And also when you're sharing the knowledge, it's more than one brain, so it's always good and it colors your answers in your exams as well, right? Because you all are talking with your experiences, and I'm giving the legal flavor to it. That's what I'm giving. You all are the experts, right? Then, now for the purpose of this particular section, they have given certain guidelines. How do you decide that? The criterion, so it's not only one, it's more than one. So the criterion for assessing the integrity of information is whether such information has remained complete and unaltered. For an example, you scan part of a check, it's not enough. It's not going to serve the purpose. And let's say you, on the image, you made certain amendments, that is not going to suffice. Apart from addition of any endorsement. So it's not the fact that you as a bank and official capacity, you can make any endorsements for the procedural purposes. That's not what this means. It's not going to affect anything. However, any change on the material in the normal course of communication, storage or display, that needs to be preserved as is. Then the standard for reliability of the assurance shall be assessed having regard to the purpose of which the information was generated and all other relevant circumstances. And also, even having those specifications and qualities, it's not going to serve the purpose. For an example, you say unaltered, not tampered, restricted, and all encrypted. And you lose some of the data down the line, like the NMRA. The National Medicinal Regulatory Authority. You see, what Sri Lanka is going through now, this is unprecedented. That's again a criminal matter. But, you should have these processes and systems and setup to ensure that you meet these guidelines. All right. Then, again, requirements for retention. Now, there are legal requirements for retention of certain documents. Now, under that information retained shall be deemed to be satisfied by retention in electronic form of information containing a data message, electronic document, and this goes on that particular things. So again, there are subjective conditions that needs to be fulfilled. So instead of retaining in paper form, you can retain it in electronic form, provided that the information in the data message and all those medium is accessible so as to be usable for subsequent reference. If, for an example, you scan and you store a particular matter and you are not be able to retrieve it, then it's an issue. There's no point. Then other thing is this data message in electronic document or etc. is retained in the format in which it was generated, sent or received, or in a format which can be demonstrated to represent accurately the information generated, sent or received, right? So, it should be usable for subsequent reference. How is mentioned in this particular clause. It should be retained in a format which involves generated, sent or received, or in a format which can be demonstrated. So for an example, if only you can see it, again, there's no point. You should be able to get that information demonstrated for a particular purpose. Thirdly, such information enables the identification of the origin and destination of the data message, the electronic document, and the date and time when such information was generated, sent, or is retained. So in addition to that, the fact that where did you get that information, the original form, where did you get it, the date and the time when it was generated, all this information needs to be there. And this is nothing to reinvent the wheel. All this system, the IT infrastructure, you save a Word file or you save a photo, a digital photograph, you would see the date generated. Let's say a Word document, it says the date created, date accessed, date modified, time accessed, everything, and who accessed and everything. That's why, example, now there was this guy who was arrested by the CID on the software IT guy from this particular company related to this tampering and deletion of data. Epic. Yeah, I didn't use the name. Anyway, he's in remand custody now. It says that you can do this forensic audit and see what he has done. And it says between this hour and this hour, he has accessed these, deleted this, number of this, everything is there. Right? It's so accurate. So this infrastructure should be there, provided that the provision of this section shall not apply to any information which is automatically generated solely for the purpose of enabling an need not be as thorough as this. Get automated this thing, the letter, and it's automatically been sent, the out of office notice, something like that. Then the next important provision, the clause, legal recognition of electronic signatures. Now, before that, we will see what electronic signatures are. Electronic signatures is given under section 26 interpretation that the term the definition of electronic signature has been changed under the amending 25 of 2017. Right. The definition has been changed, but before that we will see what this particular clause section, clause 7. Now again, I said it's repeal and replace. Now we will see what's the replace clause, right? Where any written law provides that a communication or any other document shall be signed or bear the signature of any person, then notwithstanding anything to the contrary, in such written law, the requirement shall be deemed to be met in relation to a data message, electronic document, or record. If a method, listen to this, a method is used to identify that person and to indicate that person's intention in respect of the information contained in the electronic communication. So electronic signature, maybe scanned signature of your this thing. So that should be placed in the electronic document, which itself speaks for its intention, right? That person's identify who that person who placed the electronic signature as, and also to indicate that person's intention in respect of the information. So, that's why, best regards, thank you, yours truly, and you place your electronic signature, and that gives what my intention on the contents of the letter and my intentions in sending that electronic document. So that should be there, right? And the method used is as reliable as appropriate for the purpose for which the electronic communication was generated, sent, or communicated in the light of all circumstances, including any relevant agreement, right? For an example, for this, what this basically says is, you know, the same level of seriousness should be reduced to that particular electronic agreement. Example, අර පාන්දර 12යි 6ට sign කළා කියවනේ agreement එකක් by the government of Sri Lanka and the Americans, right? Let's say, you know, they send us the agreement, and then somebody who's the signatory to that from our part send an SMS and say, okay, fine, we agree. That's not going to work, right? Then proven to have fulfilled the functions described in paragraph A. We just discussed that by itself or together with further evidence. Now, what is an electronic signature? What is an electronic signature? It's amended. We will see. Right. By the repeal of the definition of term of expression, electronic signature in the original act, this is changed now as this. Now listen carefully to what an electronic signature is. It means data, listen carefully, data in electronic form affixed to logically associated with a data message. So you place your signature, take a photograph, take the image and place it in your the email. That's an electronic signature, right? Not only that. So data in electronic form. So that image is the electronic form of your signature, right? To logically associated with the data message, electronic document, electronic record or communication which may be used to identify the signatory in relation to the data message. Electronic document, electronic record or communication to indicate the signatory's intention is the information content there. And not only that, even if you don't place your scanned image of the signature, you send that signed Rangali and again you send an email, but my electronic signature is there. What is that? My IP address. If this is same thing. See, in Sri Lanka, one good thing about this is, insofar as I am concerned, being a lecturer, for any lecture I do in any subject, I do a couple of lectures in so many subjects in law, I have a hot, fresh example to be taken from the country. I don't know whether to laugh or cry about that. But then again, insofar as this education is concerned, that's a good thing that I can explain this. So what I can do, tell you all is, insofar as this electronic signatures are concerned, read the news. Now, it gives an explanation on that. Oops, wait. Right. So we are not going to talk about the explanation because the whole section is repealed, right? This, again, I'm not going to dwell more time on this. Use of electronic records and electronic signatures in government institutions and statutory bodies. Again, this was amended by the amending act. I'm not going to dwell more time on that. But then again, I thought of for the purpose of, sometimes you have to to get more clarifications certain things, you have to read it in the other language that you know. Maybe the English language or maybe Sinhala. What I'm saying is sometimes if it's not quite clear, right? What you read in Sinhala, sometimes you need to refer the English text of the same thing, and vice versa. If it's in English and if it is not that clear, you have to go and see the Sinhala text as well. Now, this is anyway, insofar as Sri Lanka in legality is concerned, Sinhala prevails in the event of an inconsistency. Look at this. This is the amending act, the last section, that is section 27, if I'm not mistaken. Look at this. Right. Section 18. In the event of an inconsistency between the Sinhala and Tamil text of this act, the Sinhala text shall be prevail. And in the English one also it says likewise. Now in Sinhala, electronic signatures. Let's see what the definition it has given. ඒකේ අර්ථ දක්වන්නේ කොහොමද මේ කාරණේ. ඉලෙක්ට්‍රෝනික අත්සන යන පදයේ අර්ථ නිරූපණය. ඉලෙක්ට්‍රෝනික අත්සන යන්නෙන්. This is in addition to the explanation I just gave you in English. For the benefit of others who would understand, I understand, not all of you will understand Sinhala, but then again, this is in addition to the English explanation. ඉලෙක්ට්‍රෝනික අත්සන යන්නෙන් දත්ත පණිවුඩයක data message. ඉලෙක්ට්‍රෝනික ලේඛනයක, electronic document. ඉලෙක්ට්‍රෝනික වාර්තාවක්, record. හෝ වෙනත් sannivedanaයක other communication. අත්සන්කරු හඳුනා ගැනීමට සහ එහි අන්තර්ගත තොරතුරු සම්බන්ධයෙන් අත්සන්කරුගේ චේතනාව දැක්වීමට භාවිතා කළ හැකි දත්ත පණිවිඩයක්, data message. ඉලෙක්ට්‍රෝනික ලේඛනයක්, ඉලෙක්ට්‍රෝනික වාර්තාවක් හෝ වෙනත් sannivedanayak හා තාර්කිකව සම්බන්ධ වී තබන ලද ඉලෙක්ට්‍රෝනික ස්වරූපයෙන් වන දත්ත අදහස් වේ. Logically associated. So my IP address goes with that. That's my electronic signature. My print is there. My electronic print is there. My electronic footprint. When I access through what? My email account, my computer IP, internet access. All these are, my footprints. That is there. So, like I said, I'm not going to dwell much time on use of electronic records and electronic signatures in government institutions. Straightforward. Go home. Not go home. You are already at home. Read it. It's self-explanatory. Again, publication in electronic forms of gazettes deemed to be publication. So I'll just show you this. Look at this. All the publications, right, are in this Rajya Mudra Department, Department of Government Printing, everything. Publications, look at this. Gazettes, extra gazettes, bills, Ketumpat, acts, Niti, and calendars, all acts passed by the Parliament. English, Sinhala, Tamil versions. Petroleum Resources, Consumer Affairs Authority, Security, Finance, Coronavirus Disease, National Minimum Wages, Code of Criminal Procedure, everything. So this, if this is not there, if the Electronic Transaction Act is not there, this doesn't have a legal recognition or legal support. That's my point. Right. And this particular section 10 has been repealed and replaced by the amending act, by section 7 of the amending act. Right. Again, ministry, department, etc., to accept or issue any document in electronic form. So that also has been facilitated now. It's also recognized. You get an electronic reference number, electronic something, that's good enough. It's happening even now. Let's say in the Labor Department, to National Intellectual Property Office, company registrar, to, for that matter, company registration, now you can do electronically, 100%. Right, electronic filing, etc. So again, straightforward. Let's move on to the next. Electronic.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
I have small doubt because I had to write a letter because of this situation. Last month, because I have written a letter to bank. So because of the signature, they said they need a written letter with my signature. So if I apply on that on my signature image in my email, is that valid, sir? If I send with that?
Kuilini.
Yes, sir.
Valid question, important, and a good question. But like I said earlier, I'm going to park your question because I'm going to cover that area in just a moment. Right? Are we good with that? To the answer to your question, I'm going to explain that to you after I cover this particular part of the lecture. And then I'm going to address your issue head on. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Then we come to electronic contracts. Right. Now this again is repealed and replaced by this new clause. Electronic contracts, not only just a contract, invitation to make offers, a proposal to conclude a contract made through one or more electronic communications, which is not addressed to one or more specific parties, but is generally accessible to parties making use of any information system, shall be considered as an invitation to make offers, right? Unless it clearly indicates the intention of the party making the proposal to be bound in case of acceptance. Now, this is what re-emphasizing on the basic principles of laws of contract. So if there's an advertisement in the newspapers, it's not an offer, maybe a product, maybe a soap, maybe a phone, maybe a PC, laptop, car, or whatever. It's not an offer, it's just an invitation to treat, to make offers. That's what this clause basically means. That's the basic element of the law of contracts by so many series of judicial decisions, right? So this is just emphasizing on that fact. Then the new clause is this. This is the new clause, right? Just after section 11. Then it's just pre-clarification. So attribution of electronic records. Who attribution of electronic record means to whom we say this this thing is owned by, right? So unless otherwise agreed between the originator and the addressee, a data message, electronic document, electronic record, or other communication shall be deemed to be that of the originator. So deeming provision, that means unless something else is proved otherwise, it will be deemed that if electronic data message, electronic document or record or other communication, if it was sent by the originator himself, by a person who had the authority to act for and on behalf of the originator in respect to that data message or whatever, by an automated information system programmed by you on behalf of the originator. For example, on my behalf, I may have given access to an assistant of mine to send emails, So that will be deemed to be by me, although it was sent by someone else. Even if I give this is the basic law of agency, right? And then even if I have made done set up an automated response against, that will be deemed that I made that, right? So these are kind of straightforward matters, right? So read this nevertheless. (14) Oh. So this the change that they have done is the change in explaining the perspective from a different perspective. They have explained the same thing. This is what this says. How do you determine the time and place of dispatch of and receipt of electronic records? For an example, in normal mail, snail mail you call it, once you dispatch something, it's out of your control basically, right? In offer and acceptance, you send an offer, right? Or you make an offer and somebody else accepts it. How they accepted it in the far back years, they did it by snail mail. They write it and they put it into the post box. The moment they put the acceptance letter in the post box, that's a binding contract. That may have not been received by the offeror. Same principle applies. Here it says, unless otherwise agreed to between the originator and the addressee, the dispatch of the dispatch of a data message, electronic document, electronic record, or other communication occurs. So this particular part, when it enters an information system outside the control of the originator, has been repealed. Instead of those words, now the new words, leaves the information system under the control of the originator. Leaves the information out of the control of the originator. I will explain this, don't worry. Or if the data message, electronic document, electronic record, or other communication has not left an information system under the control of the originator or of the party who sent it on behalf of the originator at the time when the data message, electronic record, or other communication is received, right? So you send an email, moment you send the send button, it goes to your ISP provider, right? Then it goes to the central server, then it goes to his ISP provider, then it goes to his computer. So moment you send it, if it goes from your computer to your ISP, you lose the control. When you, in simple words, it need not be delivered to him specifically. If you once you send that, if it's not shown in your outbox, but if it has gone to your sent, you can't recall the message. That's the stage where you can't recall the message. So when it has the send stage, that's the time and place of dispatch, right? And receipt of it, what the receipt of it is, right? The time when the data message or electronic record or other communication is received not to the server but to his computer. It has to be downloaded to his computer, right? That's what this basically means. So don't worry much about this. These are kind of important when there are quite complex legal arguments. Now I'm going to take you through certain things, and this is again somewhat related to the question that you asked, one of you all asked. This act applies only to specific matters, not for all matters, right? Not for everything. This act applies for only specific matters, and for other matters of electronic transactions and electronic documents, you have to go and see the provisions of the Evidence Special Provisions Act, not the Electronic Transactions. එතකොට Electronic Transactions Act එක යටතේ ඉලෙක්ට්‍රොනික ගනුදෙනු පනත යටතේ අදාළ වෙන්නේ මොනවාද? This is the question. What are the matters that specifically comes under Electronic Transactions Act? That is given under Chapter 5, Rules Governing Evidence, Section 21. Read this very carefully and get this thing to your head. Now, this says, whatever that is mentioned in the Evidence Special Provisions Act with regard to procedure, applicability, submission and everything doesn't apply to those which are governed under the Electronic Transactions Act, which is mentioned below. What are those? 21 subsection 2. Listen to this. Any information contained in a data message or electronic document, record or communication. These two conditions needs to be fulfilled if you want to trigger Electronic Transactions Act. That your particular transaction or electronic whatever matter is touching a fact in issue or a relevant fact, meaning it should be relevant. අදාළ දෙයක් වෙන්න ඕන. තමන් කතා කරන්න යන අදාළ දේ වෙන්න ඕන. That's a basic universal principle. It should be relevant to what you are going to talk about. And it should be compiled, received, or obtained during the course of any business, trade, or profession, or other regularly conducted activity. So it should either fall into one of these four activities. Obtain, first one, during the course of any business. If whatever the, let's say, the email communication in the course of a business, you can apply Electronic Transactions Act. If it's, let's say, for the easiness of discussion, we take correspondence with related to, in the course of any trade, you can apply this. Or profession, you can apply this. Or that activity should be a regularly conducted activity. Right? That activity should be a regularly conducted. If it's not an activity regularly conducted, you cannot use the Electronic Transactions Act despite the fact that it's an electronic document or an electronic signature. If it's not a regularly conducted activity. Right? For an example, let's say a dispute between the husband and wife. Let's say a divorce matter. Wife comes and say, I saw an email. Now you can't say love letters, love emails. Right? Sent by the husband to his paramour. And relies on Electronic Transactions Act, the provisions of this, in providing that evidence to court. She can't do that because if insofar as that is concerned, it doesn't fall into any one of these categories. One thing is not any business. It's not a trade or a profession. Or it's not a regularly conducted activity. Right? So you understand. Then what's the remedy for them? They have to go and look at the provisions of Evidence Special Provisions Act. Right? Evidence Special Provisions Act. And also the fact that it should be, whatever the evidence that you are producing should be admissible evidence. Right? Now, so for those, whatever are falling under those four, whatever contained in the Evidence Special Provisions Act number 4 1995 shall apply to any in relation to, it won't apply, right? Data message, electronic record, document, electronic record will not be applicable for those matters that falls under, which we just discussed under this act, right? Now, can you, I will just answer your question. Can you just repeat your question again for me to remember? Yeah.
Can I attach my signature image in my email? Is that valid, say, if I send any legal, that's mean letters to bank or somewhere else?
Right. Letters to bank. So the short answer is that's valid in the eyes of law. However, now in practice, I will tell you what the bankers do and why they do that. They would say, no, we won't accept this. Give us a letter in writing for so many reasons. Now this letter, right, that you are sending to the bank, right? You come again this touching a fact in issue or relevant fact. Compile, received or obtained during the course of any business, trade or profession or other regularly conducted activity. If it doesn't come under any of these four, unless you are, let's say, a business, a company on behalf of the business you are conducting with the bank or whatever, let's say if that is the case, it's coming under the Electronic Transactions Act. For Electronic Transactions Act, we said for electronic document or record, there should be certain aspects that needs to be fulfilled. Reliable, able to be retrieved, you need to know where it came from, originated, etc. Now, from a bank's point of view, you are somewhere out there, originated outside their local area network. So they don't know whether, in fact, this is you yourself is sending this particular message. Or, that is one thing, whether as to the question as to the originator. Second, the question as to the content of the message. Because the message may be intercepted and changed in between, and the bank might be receiving another one. So what the bank does is, they say, if you want to send a message, either give it to us in writing, then that's the original form, or log into our internet banking or whatever, which is a 128-bit encryption, right? It's highly encrypted, so it's impossible to crack it. And send us the information, then we'll get it, act on it. Or else, they don't do this for normal retail customers, they will do this for corporate customers. They will get, before acting on any of that, they will sign something called the email indemnity. In the indemnity, what they say is, they take an undertaking from the customer, okay, the bank will accept certain email instructions from you, but you cannot hold the bank negligent or liable for any loss of data or acting on any email received by you or seem to be received by you. Bank is basically saying, look here, you can't hold me responsible for acting on an instruction which I received, which claims that it is from you, right? So on that basis, the bank won't accept commonly on electronic, documents like that, because unless they take a risk-based approach also. From that email, are you asking to transfer funds? Then that goes high risk. If that email says, just to keep the bank informed, I am receiving X number of amount of rupees to my account on this particular date, and this is the source of funds, then that's low risk. Then the bank, there is no harm in bank accepting that. So bank always look at it from a risk-based approach on the risk what is exposed to the bank. But legally, only legally speaking, you can send it and it's valid. But you have to, depending on whether it coming under any of these provisions, you have to see under which law it is governed under, whether it's coming under the Electronic Transactions Act or Evidence Special Provisions. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now we go to the other most important thing. Even now, I just mentioned, right? Electronic document, this, that, and the other. If it's normal trade, profession, business activity, or regularly conducted activity. Now, even the following transactions, even if it falls on those categories, will not be governed under Electronic Transactions Act. What are these categories? It's given under Section 23. Remember this. I have seen this has been what do you call, tested frequently. This section has been amended as well. Right. The creation or execution of a will or any other testamentary disposition by whatever name called. So it could be a will, letter of administration, all those. That's coming under different law. You need to have that notarially executed. That is a requirement of a law called Prevention of Frauds Ordinance, right? That's a requirement. So you can't, whether even if it comes under those four categories under professionals, you cannot have an electronic document under these purposes of creation and execution of a will. Secondly, the license for telecommunication system issued under the Telecommunication Regulatory Authority Act, Telecommunication Act, you can't. A bill of exchange as defined in subsection now section 3 of the Bill of Exchange Ordinance. You are experts in bills of exchange. You cannot have electronic forms of checks under this. So after C, this CA is inserted. Any financial matter in the nature of the following: transactions on regulated exchange. So Colombo Stock Exchange, there are transactions, foreign exchange transactions, interbank payment system, interbank payment agreements, clearance, settlements, transfer of security rights in sale, loan or holding of an agreement to repurchase securities or other financial assets or instruments held with an intermediary. Then D, a power of attorney as defined in the section 2 of power of attorney ordinance. This is E is repealed and replaced by a trust as defined in the trust ordinance, Bharaknya Panatyarte, excluding a constructive trust implied and resulting in a trust. A contract of for sale or conveyance of immovable property or any interest in such property. That is because of the requirement, like I said, the Prevention of Frauds Ordinance. Vanchavalaknya Panatyarte. Avashyatayak එක. Or any other document, act or transaction specified by the minister by regulations. You can't have that in place. You can't basically use this law for that. Right? So those are the salient provisions of the Electronic Transactions Act. Meaning these are imperative provisions in addition to the other provisions that I didn't discuss because those are kind of straightforward, as well as, and these areas were frequently tested. Any of you all have any questions on these? Any questions? That's about Electronic Transactions Act. Yeah, ahead of schedule. So if you all have any questions, you can ask me now. No questions? All right. Then we'll call it a day and we'll meet next week. Have a nice evening.